The date is the 2nd of June 2021. I'm here at the Ancora County Ground with
Mike Hendrick.
And Mike, I did quite a lot of research going into this. I tried to leave no stone unturned, and for a boy from Darley Dale, you had quite a strange path to playing for Derbyshire, didn't you? In the sense that you went up north first and then back down to Leicestershire, I believe.
Yes, that's because my father was in the RAF during the war, and at the end of the war, while he was waiting to be demobbed, he was stationed in at Normanton, and that's where I met my mum. My dad was from the northeast, from Darlington. My mum was a Tansley girl, and they got married. I came along, and we lived in. I was born in Darley Dale. So my first recollections of cricket were at Darley Dale Cricket Ground, because my father was quite a formidable fast bowler in his own right in local cricket. In fact, he was also an inspector of taxes, and the story goes that if he didn't get you on Saturday afternoon, he'd get you on Monday morning. But I remember, there's my earliest memories of being down there, sunshiny as it is today, and just messing about on the cricket ground, and then going across to the square and compass where I have to sit outside with my mum while my dad went in with the rest of the lads. And about at the age of 4 or 5, we moved back up to the northeast, up to where my dad came from. And I think about the age of 10 or 11, he made me a junior member of Darlington Cricket Club. He played for Darlington before the war. And that's where I first started to get excited about trying to bowl fast, basically. But interestingly enough, my first love was soccer, football. I loved playing football, and back in the day there was only, the football season had a start and a defined finished, and then it was summer and there was no football, so I played cricket. And apparently I seemed to be quite good, because I got picked for play for Darlington Boys. I played for County Durham under 18s, I think, when I was about 14. And I played my first game against men when I was 12 years old. But then father got moved, transferred in his job down to Leicester. I think I was about 15 at the time. And what happened was that one day, I think it was over the Easter holidays, I'd eventually been sent back to school. I didn't want to go back to school, but I was sent back to school. But during the Easter holidays, I went down to the local playing fields, and there was a game of cricket about to start, and I was just hanging around, and this fella came out and he said, "Can you play cricket?" And I said, "Yes." He said, "Well, we're one short, do you fancy a game?" I said, "Yes." "You got any kit?" "Yes." So I cycled back home, got my kit out of the loft, and said to my mother, "I'm off to play cricket." And so I played for this team called Birstall Village, and I didn't bowl, and I think I batted number 11, not out, which seems to ring a bell all through my career. I thought, oh well, that's handy. But the following Monday they got an all-day game and asked me if I wanted to play, so I said yes, and I turned up. Started at 11 o'clock, which is really exciting. We batted first, got bowled out for nothing, not out, none. The opposition went in, I didn't bowl, they knocked them off before lunch, so it was all over in 2 hours. So what we're going to do now, let's play another game. So in that second game, I did bowl. Well, eventually I came on to bowl. And this fella said to me, do you fancy having a bowl? I said, yes. He said, what do you bowl? I said, I'm a fast bowler. He went, oh, are you? I said, yes. So he said, well, I'll set your field for you. I said, no, I'll set my field. Anyway, I got 7 for 15 or something like that, and we won the game. So everybody's eyes had... When I went back to school after the Easter holidays, there was a notice up on the board. Now, the school that I've been to in Darlington had only got 180 boys. It was a Catholic school. The headmaster was a Jesuit priest. The discipline was like, woof. When we went to Leicester, the school that I attended there, my father eventually had to take me up there. He got 620 pupils, boys and girls. And the headmaster was a Quaker. And it was just a complete change for me, and I couldn't really handle it. I also spoke with a northeastern accent, so some of the lads there used to talk to me, so I'd answer and they'd take the mick, you see. Well, this particular day, there was a notice on the notice board. We are actually trying to form a cricket team. Those anybody interested, go down to the gymnasium. Well, this gymnasium was like it was semi-open air, and the surface was like a road. It was like asphalt road. Anyway, I wandered down there at lunchtime, and there were lads in the nets batting and bowling. So I walked in, and who should be batting in that net but this fella that used to keep taking a mick out of me. And the teacher said to me, what do you do? I said, I'm a fast bowler. He went, all right. He gave me a ball. It's one of those corky balls. Those they were really hard things. They said, come and have a bowl in this net. I said, no, I'm going to bowl in this one against that lad there. And I can see it now. I ran up and bowled him a bounce at first ball. He never moved, and he hit him straight on the nose. There was blood and stuff flying all over everywhere. I got in the team, and every Saturday I used to take wickets. And then I got noticed by Leicestershire County Cricket Club, but the youth side's called Leicester Youth Amateurs, and I played for them for a couple of seasons. In fact, when I first came across people like Tony Borrington and Fred Swarbrook, because they were playing for Derbyshire Colts. Anyway, time went by. I was playing regularly. I left school. I got a job at the electricity board, which I hated. Leicester, their coach, a fellow called Jerry Lester, rang my dad up and asked if he could approach me to play some second 11 cricket, which I did. And it got to the stage where I was playing quite regularly. I actually chucked my job in because they wouldn't let me have any more time off work to play twos cricket. So I chucked my job in, much to the disgust of my mother, because I thought I'd get a contract with Leicester, but I didn't. Now, I was down at Grace Road towards the end of August, watching Leicester Amateurs play somebody else. I was too old to play by that time, obviously. And a fella came up to me and he said, in fact it was Derbyshire Colts they were playing. A fella came up to me and he said, are you Bill Hendrick's son? And I said, yes I am. He said, my name's Freddie Edmonds. I played with and against your father just after the war. And he was running Derbyshire Colts. He said, what's happening here? I've seen you been playing second 11 cricket. Are you on the staff? Are you getting a contract? I said, no, I'm not. He went, all right. He said, they're going to be here all day. I said, most of the day. He said, right, I'll come and find you. And off he went. And an hour or two later he came back. He said, how do you fancy playing second 11 game for Derbyshire next week against Lancashire at Burnley? I said, oh yeah, fine, great stuff. So he said, right, be at the county ground at 3 o'clock on next Tuesday afternoon, and the coach, Dennis Smith, will meet you there. Fine. So my mum and dad drove me across here on the Tuesday, and at that particular time, to get into this ground, there were 3 or 4 entrances. There's one off St Mark's Road. There was one that brought you in into the paddock. It was the back of the changing rooms. There was another one at the far end of the grandstand, and there was one over there on Stores Road. Well, we'd never been here before. So we drove round and round, and eventually we came in this gate here, and we drove onto the ground, and you have to imagine this ground with absolutely nothing. It was like an infinity ground. The only clue that we had that this was a cricket ground was that place over there, which is now I don't know what it is, a little bar or something. That was the score box, and that was the only thing that gave it away that this was a cricket ground. So I got out the car over there. Well, where the hell do we go? looking around like that, like a couple of Plains Indians looking for a herd of buffalo or something, when suddenly from round the corner here, this fella came out and started waving at us. Somebody over there. So I walked across here and it was Dennis Smith. And he said, "You Hendrick?" I said, "Yes." He said, "Where's your kit?" I said, "It's here. Got one of my mother's old shopping bags with my boots and flannels and a jumper in it." And he said, "Well, where's your pads?" I said, "Well, I thought you had a club bag here, but I haven't got any." So he said, "Oh, get in the car." He got a Morris 1000 traveller at the time. So I got in the back, and next in the passenger seat was a fellow called Fred Weisel, who was, I think, our scorer. Flat cap, muffler, park drive. Dennis smoking his pipe all the way up to Burnley. And so I played in that game, and I got 2 or 3 wickets. I did okay, and that was it. Came back home to Leicester. My dad said, "How'd you get on?" I said, "I seem to get on all right." "Well, what are they going to do?" I said, "I have no idea." And it wasn't until the beginning of January 1968 I got a letter from the Major. "Dear Hendrick, the committee feel they would like to invite you over for winter nets in the indoor school Derby, commencing Sunday the so-and-so, 10 till 12. All right, so I used to borrow my dad's car and come over here and get in this the indoor school. No, it was a horrible place. It really was. There were 2 nets in there. During the winter, it was overtaken by flocks of starlings and blackbirds and things like that. They used to nest in the roof and that. So when you went in first thing in the morning, you'd frighten them all. They'd be flying around all over the place. So when you were bowling in there, you didn't dare lick your fingers and polish the ball. Didn't know what you were getting. And so that happened. I came across here for the best part of 2.5 months on a Sunday, which was good fun because I got to know the lads: Fred Swarup, Philip Russell, Tony Borrington, Bud Hill eventually, David Wilde, Freddie Swarbrook. And we used to have a lot of fun in there. I enjoyed it. And then when we'd finished there, we used to go to the Bell in Sadlergate, have a couple of pints, and I'd drive back home. How times have changed, eh? Then I got another letter from the Major towards the end of March. It said, "Dear Hendrick, the committee feel that they would like to offer you a month's trial commencing April the 5th, da-da-da-da-da-da." So I wrote back and said, "Thanks very much." And so I came over here, April 1968. I had an auntie that lived in Chaddesden, so I was in digs with her for a while. What an experience that was. The facilities, the changing rooms. Nobody would believe them if they saw them now. I mean, they would have been condemned as unfit for human habitation. There used to be the jockeys' changing rooms when this was a race course. And there was a first team dressing room. Then there was the Derbyshire dressing room. Then there was the away dressing room, which during pre-season we used, the ground staff boys. Then there was another room which I think was the physiotherapist room. Well, I say physiotherapist, not as we know it today. Next to that was a room that the umpires used to change, and then right down at the far end, after you'd gone through the showers, they were something to behold as well, was Walter Goodyear's place. In there was a huge gas boiler which they used to light to heat the water so that we could have a bath, or the first team could have a bath after a day's play. And it was a real eye-opener to me, because we'd start bowling at 10 o'clock and bowl for 2 hours, and then we knock off and then have a bite to eat and then go back out about 2 o'clock and then bowl again at about 3:30, then do a few catches and then that was it. And we did that day in, day out, and I can remember the pain of pre-season, particularly that first pre-season. I couldn't walk after 2 days. What, put it on, I'll take it off and I'll go in that net and bowl, Dennis Smith used to say. I did have a bat at that time and I used to bring it out every time I went for a net, and I'd put it down the side of the net, and then at the end I'd pick it up and take it back. And it got to the stage about 3 weeks into pre-season when I plucked up the courage to ask Dennis, when can I have a bat, Dennis? He said, "About July, there's a bowler getting that net." So I bowled. I never batted at all. First couple of years I was here. At the end of that pre-season, I was offered a contract, so I was here full time in 1968. And looking back on those times, even though the facilities were rubbish, and the stuff that we had to do, like helping Walter prepare the nets and put the nets up before we bowled at the first team on match days, and then having to after we practiced go and get the temporary stands that used to be over the other end of the grandstand, load them onto a trailer, hook the tractor up to it. Philip Russell always drove the tractor because he was the senior uncapped player. And then we used to drive around here, the boundary, and build these temporary stands. Amazing when you think back. That's what we had to do. And then sometimes when we'd done that, we'd nip up into town, because it'd be about 4:30 by that time, and have a cup of tea at the Cardoma and a tea cake, and then have to be back here to bowl at members. Members used to turn up about 5:30 and we had to bowl at them, which really didn't go down too well. So myself and Alan Ward, we used to run and bowl bouncers at them so that they wouldn't come back the next week. But there was always 1 or 2 people there who were slightly dodgy because they used to like us hitting them. But one fellow who got actually great practice, I think he was a local doctor. He used to put half-crown pieces on the top of his stumps, and if we bowled him out at the end of the session, he'd give us the money, which is fine because then we could nip down the Exeter Arms or somewhere and get a couple of pints. So that was all right. But looking back, it was interesting, and even though we got paid a pittance, we did have some fun, and I must admit that I did enjoy that start to my career here.
And just on that as well, you mentioned about how you used to bring a bat out and rarely use it in the nets. But do you feel like just the fact that your training really was bowling and bowling and bowling?
Yeah.
How much did that help you kind of perfect the technique that will go on to kind of make your career, so to speak?
Well, right. Did I ever have any technical coaching? No. Apart from Dennis, who used to stand at the back of the net, and every time I'd run up and bowl a ball, and he'd go, "Shoulder." What? Shoulder. And I'd say to Philip Russell, "What's he talking about?" It's shoulder. Get your shoulder round. All right, okay. He didn't just shout shoulder at me, he shouted at the batsman as well, get your shoulder into the shot. So that was the only sort of technical bit of coaching I got. I put my foot down, an undulation in the ground, and I went over on my ankle, snap. Oh, don't move. Well, it looks as if you broke your ankle. Well, it felt like I broke my ankle. Right, we'll get something to take you off on. So I couldn't find a stretcher, so they unscrewed a door off the dressing room, put me on a door, and pulled me across here until an ambulance came or something. Oh yeah, it's true. Yeah.
That's one of those stories you just don't hear these days, and probably quite rightly. But it really did. It was part of the character of the game back then, wasn't it?
What, being carried off on a door? This county never had any money, right? It was throughout my career here, oh, I haven't got any money, can't do this and can't do that. So things were tough here. Yeah, they were. You had to be resilient to play for Derbyshire, basically, and that probably reflected in the performances over the years. I mean, looking back, we weren't. There were talented people in the squad, in the teams, but for some reason nothing really seemed to happen on a consistent basis, and it was the biggest. I think the biggest thing that we wanted to do was beat Notts for the wooden spoon, because between 1969 and 1975, we were always down the bottom, apart from I think 1975 when Bob Taylor took over as captain after Brian Bowlers. We did go on a little run where we won a few games, and I think we finished a bit higher up there, but this place could be really depressing if you let it, and I'm sure that had an effect on quite a lot of people. There wasn't a lot of jollity, as I recall, in the dressing room when I got into the first team. It was tough. It was hard work.
Well, let's move on to what you did as a player, and firstly 1972 is where I want to start.
Right.
Picked up 66 wickets from 21 matches, an average of 20.53. Wisden Young Cricketer of the Year. I mean, what was that like as a young player, really breaking through and then getting the recognition for it as well?
Yes, 72 was the year that things did seem to fall into place. But it wasn't 72. It wasn't a really happy year either in terms of the team and things. From a personal point of view, I mean, I was just glad to be in the side because of what had happened in 1970 and 1971. I've broken into the side, but unfortunately I picked up shin splints, periostitis in my left leg, which was absolute agony, and I missed a lot of cricket. In fact, I didn't know whether I was going to get a contract after 1971, but I did, and I managed to stay injury free and just enjoyed bowling, and yeah, that's when I felt as if I was becoming accepted by the club and by other players. But at the end of 1972, the last game of the season we played at Lancashire, and the Major was making a special journey up to Blackpool, playing Lancashire, to tell everybody what was going to happen the following year, because nobody had been told who got a contract or anything like that. And I can remember him coming into the dressing room and saying, the committee have decided that we can't tell you what is happening until the new captain is announced and he's had his input. And I remember Peter Gibbs saying, so we're all out of contract. Does that mean the whole team is for sale, Major? Which didn't go down too well with him. And then he said, who's captain? He said, well, Brian Bowlers is coming over from Nottinghamshire. Well, at the end of that year, people like Peter Gibbs, John Harvey, David Smith, and a few other lads, John Harvey, they all finished. So there was about half a dozen lads finished. In 1975, Brian came over and took over as captain. Yeah. So that's the first season that I broke into it and really thought I'm going places.
Well, off that as well, of course, the next year comes your England ODI debut.
Yes.
It's against the West Indies, which is a fearful experience at the best of times, isn't it? I think in any era, but particularly that era.
Well, yeah, there was.
What were your thoughts thinking if you have to come in and bat, firstly, and then how proud were you to represent England?
Oh, well, it was. Well, in 73, 73, I'd been picked in the 12 for the Test match against the West Indies at Edgbaston, but I didn't play. I was 12th man there. So yeah, and then I got picked for the one-day side. Well, in 1973, their attack, whilst it was pretty good, wasn't as fearsome as 1976 and 77 with all those fellas. I think Keith Boyce was probably the quickest bowler they had at the time. Well, I don't know. As I say, batting was. Well, I had to bat because I was in the team, but you know, bat. No, I'm a bowler. But I can tell you that when I was asked to bowl, I marked my run about, and this is at Headingley. I marked my run about, and I couldn't move. My feet had been nailed to the ground, just through nerves. So that was what's going on here? But eventually you get through it, and away you go. So yeah, that was. I enjoyed that. Yeah, I think we beat them as well.
I mean, how does that feel as well? You mentioned that at times for Derbyshire during that era wasn't always the best.
No.
As an England player then, coming back, of course there were a few around at the time, but as an England player coming back into that dressing room, do you feel like you've almost gone up in stature at that time?
What, as far as my relationship with the rest of the boys were concerned? No, I didn't. Did I think that I was a better cut above than the rest? No, I didn't. I didn't. Yeah, I was proud to have played for England because that'd always been my ambition. But what it did do was bring home to me the fact that, you know, there are places better than this, you know. And I have said to a couple of the boys in the past that I probably played for England despite playing for Derbyshire, not because of playing for Derbyshire.
And of course, you also make your Test debut against India.
Yeah.
At the time. Just then, as an experience for you, what had greater significance? Playing one-day cricket, or did you enjoy playing Test cricket and first-class cricket more?
Well, Test cricket is a pinnacle, and I still believe it is, even though other people have got modern ideas. But to play Test matches, the ultimate. It's called Test cricket because it tests you as a person, tests you mentally, tests your ability, your fitness, everything. So yeah, that was the pinnacle. Yeah. One-day cricket was still basically in its infancy then, but yeah, it was enjoyable. I mean, you only had to bowl 10 or 12 overs. You know, you didn't have to bowl 25 or 30. So it was like half a shift.
And we'll just fast forward. We'll get back to Derbyshire in a second, but I just want to touch on 1977. Firstly, 67 wickets at 15. Won the Ashes and the Wisden Cricketer of the Year, which you can see the picture just there. It's not a bad few months, is it?
No, it isn't, and yeah, well, but you see, it's my job. That's what I did, you know, and I became good at it. So I expected to perform, and loved every minute of it, really. Yeah, that was a good season, good year. You have to really enjoy those because they are few and far between. Before you get to that level, and even after you get to that level, form is you can't be good all the time, and lots of things affect form. What's going on back at your county, stuff that happens in your private life. It's because cricket is such a long game, and you are forever basically living in each other's pockets. You have to have a good relationship, and the dressing room has to be a happy dressing room for all these things to come together, to allow people to express themselves to the best of their ability, which reflects personally and reflects on the team success as well. So when teams are going through a bad time, you know, I can look at things maybe from the inside and think, well, maybe that's not right there and that's not right there. Can understand a little bit, perhaps more than people who aren't as close as that to the game and to the dynamics of a dressing room. See, when Eddie Barlow came here, the whole atmosphere changed. He did bring a sense of fun. He was always smiling. We always had a laugh. And at that particular time, the side, you know, it was a young team, an inexperienced team in many ways, with the likes of Bud Hill and Colin Tunnicliffe and Jeff Miller, those sorts of boys. But we started to have a laugh and enjoy coming here and playing cricket, because he was great. He was great. I mean, other boys have waxed lyrical about what Eddie did for them, but he certainly was a big influence on my career, because when he came in 1976, Alan Ward was still here, and if I do have any big disappointments about my time here, it was the fact that myself and Wardy didn't play together as much as we should. I mean, Alan did suffer with injuries. I had my fair share of injuries, and there were only a couple of times when we actually worked together as an opening bowling partnership. If we could have stayed together, we would have been as good as Jackson and Gladwin, Rhodes and Jackson. I mean, we would have been. We were fed off each other. So that was a disappointment. But I can remember playing a game here when Eddie taken over as captain. I think Eddie may have taken over as captain. And it was a one-day game. I can't remember who it was against. I think we won it, but Mike Carey, who was one of the local journos, invited us down to his place in Darley Abbey for a bit of a drink afterwards. And so we were in there, and I'm having a beer with Wardy, and Bunter comes over to us. He said, "Now then, lads, are you all right?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Alan, how many test matches have you played?" And Wardy said, "Oh, I don't know, 8 or something like that." I said, "How many test matches have you played then, Doe?" I said, 12, 13, something like that. He said, "Let me tell you something, lads. You two aren't fit enough to play in my county side, let alone test cricket." Wardy had a go back at him about fitness, because one of the things about Alan was that when we were training, he was always at the front. I mean, he was a good trainer. I wasn't. I was a poor trainer. I didn't like it. I couldn't see the point in running unless you were running up to bowl or running after a ball. I couldn't see it. So Wardy's had a go at him, and I've gone, I'm going to back away from this. And anyway, that's what he said. You're not fit enough to play in my side, and then walked off. So I thought to myself, well, I've got to do something about this, which I did. But if he hadn't said that, I might have just drifted along thinking I was doing all right. And of course, at the end of that season, Eddie sacked Alan. I just wonder whether it was because he'd had a goal back at him, or because there was some doubt in Eddie's mind about Alan, because he was a pretty good judge of character. Yeah.
On that then, with Eddie, you mentioned how he changed the mentality, and he had a very good atmosphere, but what was the difference then in just before and after, in terms of how you looked at the game under Eddie?
Well, because pre-Eddie, we didn't win many games of cricket, and that's a horrible habit to get into. And we used to go into games wondering if we were going to stack up, wondering if we were going to win. But under Eddie, we went in full of confidence and expectation. We're going to get in there and get stuck in, which is what we did. And as I say, the years that Eddie was here, 76, 77, 78, that was probably our happiest time here, team-wise. Yeah.
I'm just going to fast forward a second to 1981, the Natwest Trophy. I mean, first of all, how much pride was there winning a trophy in the county of your birth, but also one that you spent so much time with?
Well, bittersweet. And I'll tell you why. Well, in 78 we got to the Benson Hedges final, and we lost to Kent, which was a big disappointment. Just on that game, this is an interesting thing. Excuse me if I go off on tangents.
No, absolutely fine.
But I'm a unique bowler during my career, because I had two of the world's best wicket keepers behind the stumps. When I played for Derbyshire, Bob Taylor was behind the stumps. So when I played for England, Alan Knott was the keeper at that particular time. Then when Alan Knott retired, then Bob came in. And we all know how great a keeper Bob and Alan Knott was. And people used to say to me, well, who's the best? I said, well, you can't get a bus ticket between them, really. But the one thing that actually shocked me was when I asked Alan Knott to stand up to me at Edgbaston in a test match. So the pitch had just gone absolutely dead. There's hardly any pace in it at all. And I said, will you stand up to me? And he said, oh no, I can't stand up to you, Endo. And I said, well, Bob does, because the pitches out here that we had to bowl on, they were rubbish, really. There was no pace or bounce in them, and some were worse than others. And I did used to say to Bob, come and stand up to me. So, but in that game at the Bensons, we batted first, didn't get many, and then Kent were chugging along all right until we got to tea. And he said to us, look, we've got to get some wickets here. Bob Woolman was still batting. He said, so who's going to bowl? I said, I'll bowl, captain. So the first over after tea, Bob Woolman nicked me to Bob and he dropped it. The second ball I bowled to slip and he dropped it. Two of the safest catches of all time. That was a bit deflating. But that in 1981. 1981 wasn't a very good year for me for quite a number of reasons. But I played in a test match at the Oval, and early on in that test match I'd nipped my intercostal muscle in my side here, and it's a pretty nasty injury for a fast bowler to get. But I had to keep going. Anyway, Bernard Thomas was the England physio, and I said to him, "You better ring Derby and tell them what's gone on, because we've got the final next week, Natwest final." Anyway, when I get back here, Barry Wood was captain at that time, so and he and I didn't really see eye to eye on several things. But he said to me, "Are you going to be fit for Saturday?" I said, "Well, Woody, I don't know. I can't do anything about this." So I was just resting for the week. Got to Thursday before the Saturday, and he said, "How are you feeling?" And I said, "Well, it's not great." He said, "Well, you've got to play." I said, "Well, I don't know whether I can or whether I can bowl." So he said, "Well, you're coming down with us anyway on tomorrow, so you can go and have a net down at Lord's." Anyway, not to put too fine a point on it, I did play, but I said to Woody, "Look, mate, I've got to bowl me 12 overs straight through, because if I bowl a spell and come off, I don't think I'll be able to come back." So I said, "Fine, okay." I bowled 7 overs, 7 overs with a new ball, and he took me off, and I was raging. "You can't do this. I've told you what will happen." Anyway, he brought me back for the last 5 overs from one end, and I could hardly get my arm over. So from going from 7 overs, none for 14, I bowled 12 overs, 1 for 55 or something like that, and I was in agony. And we came off the field, and I just felt really low, and I couldn't watch. So I went off down to a room in the Lord's Pavilion, and I just lay on a bed down there for a couple of hours. But I did come back when I could hear that wickets were falling or things were getting. I did come back in the dressing room, and I did see Tunners and Jeff get that winning run. And that was the last game I played for Derbyshire.
I mean, on that then, I mean, of course it should be a high note to finish on, shouldn't it? But
yes.
Do you look back on it and, of course, you wish it had been a bit different?
Yes.
But how do you look back on that then? As was it the perfect end, or was it a regret almost?
It was. It was nice to win a trophy. It was nice to win a trophy because we'd never really been anywhere near, apart from the Benson final, throughout my career here. The only other final that was that I remember was Derbyshire and the Gillette Cup against Yorkshire, and I think that was 1969. But of course, I wasn't in the side then. But that's the only couple of times when we looked as if we got a chance of winning a trophy. So yeah, to win the inaugural NatWest, yes, I'm really pleased for the club and for the players. By that stage, I needed a change. I really needed a change. I wasn't enjoying my cricket at all, for various reasons. Yeah. But hey ho.
Well, just obviously you played with some of the greats of Derbyshire. I mean, we've already touched on Eddie, but there's so many others to mention. But if you had to name one or two, who would you put as the best match winners that you played with, and why?
Match winners. Right. Peter Kirsten and John Wright became outstanding batsmen for Derbyshire. Bud Hill developed, and Eddie was very instrumental in Bud's development from being a batter who just batted and accumulated runs slow to a fella that could hit the ball. And match winners, yeah, those two with the bat. Eddie himself, Alan Ward could be a match winner when he was on song. I'd like to think I won 1 or 2 games for them as well. But in certain conditions, I mean, Fred Swarbrick bowled Sussex, got 9 for 20 as a match winning performance. But the problem is, you see, the problem is that we never did it consistently. There were bright sparks, but they faded quite quickly, and that's been the history of this club for a long time. But, yeah.
It goes like saying one of the greatest players ever to bowl for Derbyshire, but what is your personal favourite memory of playing for this club?
Chesterfield was always a happy hunting ground for me because the pitches there got some pace and bounce, and they were good pitches. If you could bowl, you get wickets there. If you could bat, you'd get runs there as well. So you had to be good at both those. But I got a couple of 8-fers and a 7-fer up at Chesterfield. I got a 5-fer against Worcester to win the game. I think I was probably in the last over. Those are things that stick in my mind. I got a hat trick against the West Indies at Chesterfield as well. I wish we'd have played at Chesterfield all the time instead of at one stage being Derbyshire Nomads, when we must have played on 8 grounds because this place got banned. So then we were playing the Ilkeston, Heanor, Chesterfield, Buxton, 2 grounds on Burton-on-Trent. Yeah, well, we called ourselves at that particular time the Nomads.
Well, Mike, it's been a pleasure.
Thanks very much.